Hi everyone. In the last video, we discussed about the thermal properties of matter. Its first part already we discussed what is meant by thermal expansion, linear expansion, area expansion and volume expansion, and already we discussed about the anomalous behavior of water also, and why, because of this anomalous behavior of water, it is helpful for the aquatic animals or aquatic plants and all those. It is helpful. That also already we discussed. And here in this video, we will discuss the remaining topics of this chapter. Okay. So we will discuss first of all, what is meant by specific heat capacity. This term may be familiar to you. Already you might have heard in chemistry classes what is meant by specific heat capacity. In simple terms, we can say that it is the amount of energy needed to heat substance up. Okay. The amount of energy needed to heat substances, that simply we can say it as, in simplest way we can say it as specific heat capacity. Okay, so specific heat capacity can be thought of as a measure of how much heat energy is needed to warm the substance up, how much heat energy is given to heat a substance to a particular temperature. Accordingly it will be very different. Okay, so how much energy is needed, that is known as specific heat capacity. And you will possibly have noticed that it is easier to warm up a saucepan full of oil than it is warm up one full of water. If a saucepan is there, if it is completely filled with oil, and if another saucepan of same dimension and same quantity of water, if it is taken in another saucepan, it is easier to warm up a saucepan which contains oil, because oil has less specific heat capacity in comparison with water. That only we are going to discuss in this topic. Okay. So first of all, we can define what is meant by specific heat capacity. So specific heat capacity of a substance is the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 gram or 1 kilogram of the substance by 1 degree Celsius. In SI unit, the mass is 1 kilogram. That's why we can define specific heat capacity as the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of unit mass of the substance. Okay, better you can define in that way, unit mass of the substance by unit degree Celsius or unit Kelvin. Okay, if we are representing in CGS unit, we can write it as 1 gram, or if it is in SI unit, we have to write it as mass is in 1 kilogram. Okay, so if we are taking unit mass of the substance, and if we want to increase the temperature by unit degree Celsius, how much heat energy is given to that object, that is known as specific heat capacity. Okay, and the unit of specific heat capacity we can write either as joule per degree Celsius per gram or joule per Kelvin per gram, because here if per degree Celsius means the temperature is represented in degree Celsius, if it is represented in Kelvin, and we can write it as joule per Kelvin per gram. And the SI unit, what is SI unit? SI unit is joule per Kelvin per kilogram. Okay, so here actually specific heat capacity in that definition itself, not only you have to write it as 1 gram unit mass of the substance, that is better. Okay, specific heat capacity of a substance is the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of unit mass of the substance by unit degree Celsius or unit Kelvin. Okay, now we can define molar specific heat. Okay, what is meant by molar specific heat? So it is defined as the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 mole of the substance through 1 degree. Okay, if we are considering 1 mole of the substance, we are taking 1 mole of the substance, and to increase its energy by 1 degree, how much heat should be given? That is known as molar specific heat. Okay. And now we will discuss about principle of calorimetry. It is very simple, that already familiar to you also. That is, if a hot object and cold object is kept in contact with each other, what happens? Heat will be flown from hot object to the cold object. No. So this principle of calorimetry says that heat lost by the hot object will be equal to heat gained by the cold object. Okay. So it states that the heat gained by the cold body must be equal to the heat lost by the hot body. Okay. If we are keeping hot body and cold body, if a hot body is kept there, okay, and if we are keeping a cold body in contact with that hot body, what happens? This hot body will be losing the heat and the cold body will gain the heat, will take the energy. So the heat gained by the cold body should be equal to heat lost by the hot body. Okay. So heat gained is equal to heat lost, and this is the principle of calorimetry. Okay. So in the case of specific heat capacity, we can write the equation. Already we discussed. So amount of heat energy gained or lost by the substance, that can be written as mass of the substance into specific heat capacity of the substance into change in temperature. Okay. So we can write in equation form the heat energy either gained by the object or lost by the object, that is equal to Q is the heat energy. If we are writing the heat energy by the letter Q, so Q is equal to M into C into delta T. What is M? M is the mass of the object, C is its specific heat capacity, and delta T is the change in temperature. Okay. That temperature, by gaining that energy, how much its final initial temperature is there, final temperature is there. So to acquire particular temperature, okay, how much energy is given. So that difference in temperature is delta T. Okay. Now here you can see that the specific heat capacities of some substances are given. Okay. Here is a table which shows the specific heat capacities. What is the unit? It is given in joule per kilogram per Kelvin. Okay. Joule per kilogram Kelvin. Okay. So in that unit we are representing the specific heat capacities of different materials. So no need of by hearting this table. From this table you can get an idea that specific heat capacity of water is very large. It is 4200. Okay, joule per kilogram Kelvin. But in the case of mercury, you can see that specific heat capacity is very small. It is 14 only. 14 joule per kilogram Kelvin. So what it shows? It shows that what is significance of this specific heat capacity? It shows that we have to give more heat energy for water than mercury if both are at the same temperature, and if final temperature of both materials to be, if they attain to be same, then we have to provide more heat energy to water in comparison with mercury. Okay. Is it clear? So we can say that specific heat capacity shows how much energy is given to increase the temperature of unit mass of the substance by unit degree Celsius. So if specific heat capacity is more, we can say more heat energy is required to heat up the substance, and if specific heat capacity is less heat energy is required, or less energy is given to heat up the substance. Okay. Is it clear? So that is the significance of this table. Okay. And in the now we will discuss the applications, some of the applications of this specific heat capacity, where it is applied. You might have seen utensils which are used for making tea or coffee or cooking vegetables. That vessels are normally made of materials of low specific heat capacity. Or you might have seen that they are polished at the bottom. Copper coated vessels you might have seen. It's a specialty because they get heated quicker, because specific heat capacity is lesser. So it will be heated very fast. Copper or aluminium vessels normally we are using, or copper coated steel vessels also nowadays we are using. Okay. Why? Because they are having low specific heat capacity. So they can be heated up very fast. Okay. Is it clear? These type of vessels you might have seen. No. Similarly, in the case of swimming pool, The water in swimming pool remains cool even in summer, and people enjoy a lot staying inside the pool because of its high specific heat capacity of water. Because of the high specific heat capacity of the water, what happens in summer season also? The water in the swimming pool remains cool. Okay, is it clear? Now another application is that we can see the handles of utensils at home are made of materials which have very high specific heat. You might have seen normally wooden handles will be there or plastic handles will be there. Why? Because those materials there have utensils handles normally made up of thermal insulators. Why? They can act as thermal insulators because of its high specific heat capacity. It takes more time for getting heated up or more heat energy is needed. So the insulating capability or conductivity is also dependent on specific heat capacity. Okay, this conductivity, that property also depends on specific heat capacity. So like these vessels you might have seen, normally these handles will be either made up of plastic or wooden because they are having high specific heat capacity in comparison with aluminium or steel or copper. Okay, so this is another application where we are using that specific heat capacity in daily life. And another application is that water's high specific heat capacity helps to moderate daily air temperatures around large bodies of water. That already we discussed in the case of swimming pool. Why? Because of its high specific heat capacity. It helps to moderate daily air temperatures around large bodies of water. Water's specific heat capacity is more than 4 times that of most metals. You can see that table. If you are having doubt, you can go through that table and you can see that water's specific heat capacity is more than 4 times that of most of the metals. Okay, is it clear? And now we will discuss about effect of heat on the change of state. This already you have studied in 9th standard in chemistry. So what happens if you are providing heat energy to solid? What happens? It will convert it into liquid, and again if you are providing heat energy, it will be converted into gaseous state. No. Okay. So how this heat energy helps for the change of state, that only we are going to discuss. The simplest activity that already you have studied in 9th standard, that is in a beaker, ice cubes are taken, crushed ice is taken in a beaker and a thermometer is dipped or inserted into it, and we are providing heat energy that is kept on a tripod stand, and we are providing heat energy. What happens? This ice will be slowly, it will be melting, and again if you are providing heat energy, this ice will be completely melt into water. Again if you are providing heat energy, this water will be converted into water vapor. No. Okay. So here, so this is the process that what we are doing, that already discussed and already you have studied. So if we are plotting a graph between, what we are plotting a graph between delta Q by M, that is heat energy required per mass and temperature. Okay, so you can see that first part, for example this is minus 28 degrees Celsius ice is taken here. For this graph you can see that minus 28 degrees Celsius ice is taken. So till it becomes 0 degrees Celsius ice, what happens? There is an increase in temperature. You can see that minus 28 degrees Celsius to 0 degrees Celsius. Then from 0 degrees Celsius, even though we are providing heat energy, there is no increase in temperature. You can see that one horizontal line you can see there. Okay. Corresponding to 0 degree Celsius, you can see a horizontal line. So what it shows, even though we are providing heat energy, here you can see that here heat energy, that energy is increased from, it reached more than 100 also. Then also what happens? There is no increase in temperature. So what happened to that heat energy? That heat energy what we are giving, what happened to that? Even though there is no increase in temperature. So in that process what happens is that there change of state is taking place. Change of state means 0 degrees Celsius ice is getting converted into 0 degrees Celsius water, because of which there is no increase in temperature. Even though we are providing heat energy, that energy is utilized to change the state of the substance. Okay, change ice is getting converted into water. So 0 degrees Celsius ice is getting converted into 0 degrees Celsius water. So there is no temperature increase or horizontal line you can see. Okay, so during that state what happens, both ice and water, it will be existing, coexist in that time. Okay, now what happens when that complete ice is getting converted into 0 degrees Celsius ice, when it is completely converted into 0 degrees Celsius water, after that what happens, if you are providing heat energy, temperature of the water gets increased. Okay, till it reaches 100 degrees Celsius. Okay, is it clear? So till it reaches 100 degrees Celsius, what happens, temperature is slowly increased. Again what happens at 100 degrees Celsius, again when you can see one horizontal line. So what's the specialty of that horizontal line? There 100 degrees Celsius water and 100 degrees Celsius steam are coexisting. Okay, so there is no increase in temperature. Why? When even though we are providing heat energy, you can see that from 200 calories per gram to almost between 700 and 800, that much calories per gram, even though there is increase in heat energy, that much energy even though we are giving, there is no variation in temperature, because there 100 degrees Celsius water is getting converted into 100 degrees Celsius steam. So in that case what happens, that energy is completely utilized for the change of state. Okay, so those horizontal part of the graph shows that the energy during that time, energy or heat energy, whatever is given, that is completely utilized for the change of state. So first horizontal line, that's solid to liquid conversion, and second horizontal line 100 degrees Celsius water to 100 degrees Celsius steam, the liquid to gaseous conversion. Okay, so that is a significance of heat energy when we are providing heat energy for the change of state. Okay, so here already we discussed during that 0 degrees Celsius water, 0 degrees Celsius ice is there. When we are providing heat energy, there is no increase in temperature, so that heat energy is completely utilized for the change of state. So that's why that during that time we can call it as latent heat. So it is the amount of heat required to change the state of unit mass of a substance at constant temperature and pressure. Okay, so at constant temperature and pressure, when temperature and pressure is constant, how much heat is required for the change of substance, but it is for the change of state of unit mass of a substance, that is known as latent heat. Okay, so in mathematical form we can write it as Q is equal to M into L. If Q is the heat energy given for a given mass for change of state, so we can write Q is equal to M into L. Q is the heat energy to be given, L is the latent heat, and M is mass. Okay, so latent heat of fusion is there, latent heat of vaporization is there. Latent heat of fusion corresponds to change of state from solid to liquid, and latent heat of vaporization corresponds to the heat energy given for change of state from liquid to vapor. Okay, and for different materials its value is different, and in the problem normally they will give the value of that particular material, and only in the case of water, if possible, you can study those values. What is the latent heat of fusion of ice, latent heat of vaporization of water, those values you can study. Okay, so heat energy given for change of state, that heat energy we can write it as Q is equal to M into L. Q is the heat energy, M is the mass of the object, and L is the latent heat. Now we are going to discuss about modes of heat transfer, by which heat energy can be transferred from one object to another object. There are different ways are there by which heat energy can be transferred. Okay, for example, if in a class a teacher wanted to distribute something to the students, different ways are there. The first way is that teacher will call the student. Teacher will call the first student. Okay, one those who is sitting very near to that first bench. Okay, she or he can call, the teacher can call and give some that to that student, and will say that you pass that to the you pass to your nearby student, and nearby student you can pass to other student, so that it can reach till last. Like that the teacher can distribute. Another way is that teacher can call one by one. First she can call, you come here, take this item, go. Next one, come here, take this item and go. Like that. This is another way. And third way, what it is? Instead, teacher is very lazy and students are also very lazy. They don't want to come near to the teacher, and teacher also don't want to give like that. So what teacher will do? Teacher will say, okay students, you can sit in your own place. I will throw. Okay, I will throw so that you can catch. So she will throw from her own place and each student can catch. Okay, so these are the three ways of transfer of something. Okay, same way we can say this is what happens in conduction, convection and radiation. Okay, so there are three types of modes of heat transfer: conduction, convection and radiation. So first of all we will discuss what is meant by conduction. It is a process in which heat is transmitted from one part of a body to another at a lower temperature through molecular collision without any actual flow of matter. So the matter itself is not moving, but heat energy is transferred from hotter object to colder object. It will be transferred adjacent from one molecule to adjacent molecule, like that. Okay, the first mode of giving something that already discussed. Okay, teacher is standing and teacher is giving one item to the first student and telling to pass it. That what happens in conduction. Okay, so it is a process in which heat is transmitted from one part of a body to another at a lower temperature through molecular collisions without any actual flow of matter. Here that student himself or herself is not moving from their place. What they are doing? They are just passing that object, whatever is given to them. Okay, is it clear? This is what happens in conduction. Solids are heated by the process of conduction. Okay, the best example is that solids are heated by the process of conduction. And now we will discuss about thermal conductivity before going to convection and radiation. Related to conduction itself, but one derivation we have to discuss. So after discussing that only we'll proceed to convection and radiation. Okay, so we will discuss what is meant by thermal conductivity. So here we are considering an object. Okay, a solid object is there and its one part is getting heated up and another part, that is T2, the temperature is greater than T1. Okay, and the cross-sectional area is A, it is connected. Okay, and heat energy, no doubt heat energy will flow from hotter phase to colder phase. So it depends on which parameters it depends. It depends on time duration. It depends on cross-sectional area. It depends on the temperature difference. Larger the temperature difference between hotter and colder phase, more heat energy will be transferred. So we can write Q is directly proportional to A into T1 minus T2 into T divided by D. What is Q? Q is the heat energy transferred from hot object to cold object, or hot phase to cold phase, and A is the cross-sectional area. T1 minus T2 is the temperature difference between the opposite phases, hot phase and cold phase, and small t is the time for which the heat flows, and D is the separation. So this T1 minus T2 by D, what it shows? Variation of temperature with distance. That is known as temperature gradient. Initially also I told you, if any quantity varies with distance, that is known as gradient. Velocity gradient is there. Here T1 minus T2 by D, that we can call it as temperature gradient. Sometimes in problem, instead of giving temperatures and that thickness, what they will give but they will give that temperature gradient like that. So you should know that that is given by T1 minus T2 divided by D. So if we remove the proportionality symbol, a constant will be there. So Q is equal to K into A into T1 minus T2 into T divided by D, and K is known as coefficient of thermal conductivity. Okay, and for different materials, coefficient of thermal conductivity is different. It depends on the nature of the material. Okay, and sometimes in problems they will ask you to find what is the power, heat energy per unit time. Okay, so Q by T you have to find. So that can be written as K into A into T1 minus T2 by D. Whichever is accordingly you can find it. Okay, is it clear? So heat energy will flow from hotter part of the object to the colder part during through the process of conduction. So that heat energy depends on the cross-sectional area. It is direct. If larger cross-sectional area, more heat energy can be flown. Depends on the temperature difference between hot and cold phase. Larger the temperature difference, more heat energy will be flown. If the colder phase is closer, what happens? Quickly heat energy can be transferred. No, if the separation is larger, if thickness is larger, it takes more time. So that's why D is coming in denominator. Similarly, it is directly proportional to T. T means time. If it is kept for longer time, more heat energy can be transferred. No, if it is kept for short time, less heat energy will be transferred. For a longer time, we can say more heat energy will be transferred. That's why we can write Q is equal to K into A into T1 minus T2 into T divided by D. So already first mode of heat transfer we discussed. Now we are going to discuss about the second mode of heat transfer, that is known as convection. So it is the process by which heat flows from the region of higher temperature to the region of lower temperature by the actual movement of the material particles. So here in the process of convection, what happens? Actual movement. By the actual movement, heat energy is flown. That I told you example. Teacher is calling the students one by one. Okay. So one student is coming and taking the item and going back. So like this, what happens in the case of convection also, each molecule will be kept in contact, will come in contact with the source of heat. So water is getting heated, or liquids and gases are getting heated by the process of convection. Okay. So whenever water is getting heated, what happens is that the water which are at the bottom level, they will get energy, they will get heat energy. So what happens? This will get in heat energy. Because of this, it will become lighter and it will move to up, and the colder water will come to the bottom. Okay. So like this process, convection, or like this process, liquids and gases are getting heated up. That is by the process of convection. Similarly, it helps in the formation of trade winds. No need to tell what is meant by trade winds. Already you have studied in geography. So in the formation of trade winds also convection helps. Similarly, in land and sea breeze, for the formation of land and sea breeze also convection is there. Similarly, for monsoon also convection. And now we will discuss about radiation. Okay. So radiation means it is the process by which heat is transmitted from one place to another without heating the intervening medium. Though the intervening medium will not be disturbed, heat energy will be transferred from one place to another place without disturbing the intervening medium. That I told you, the teacher throwing the object to different persons. So medium is not getting affected and each person is getting that thing. Okay, that is what happens in the case of radiation. Best example is that we are getting energy, heat energy from the sun by the process of radiation. Even though you know that when the light rays or when the radiations are coming, there is vacuum also. Through vacuum also it is coming, which shows that no medium is needed. So without disturbing or without heating any intervening medium, we are getting heat energy from the sun. Okay. So this is one example where you can see both conduction, convection, radiation, everything. So here water, we are boiling water in a vessel. So there stand, you can see that this, what it is, we are holding, no. So they are holding there it is getting heated up by the process of conduction. Okay, and water molecules are getting heated by the process of convection, and we are getting energy out. When we are standing near to that, we are feeling hot or we are feeling warm because of the process of radiation. So here you can see that one example where all the three phenomena can be observed. Okay. And now we will discuss about black body radiation. So first of all, before discussing what is meant by black body radiation, you should know what is meant by black body. No? A black body is one which neither reflects nor transmits but absorbs whole of the heat radiation incident on it. So a black body radiation is that, a black body is that which it will not reflect, it will not transmit, but it will absorb all of the, whichever heat radiation is incident, it will absorb. Okay. So when a black body is heated to a high temperature, okay, if you are heating a black body to a very high temperature, what's the specialty? It emits radiations of all possible wavelengths. It will emit radiations of all possible wavelengths within a certain range. And the radiations emitted by a black body are known as black body radiations. Okay. So when you are providing heat energy to a black body, or if you are heating a black body, what happens? It emits radiations. Different wavelength radiations will be emitted as temperature varies. Different wavelength radiations will be emitted, and the radiations emitted by a black body are called black body radiations. And now we will discuss about Stefan-Boltzmann's law. Okay, Stefan-Boltzmann law. So the total heat energy emitted by a perfect black body per second per unit area is directly proportional to the fourth power of the absolute temperature of the surface. So the total heat energy emitted by a perfect black body per second, energy emitted per second per unit area by a perfect black body is directly proportional to what? Fourth power of absolute temperature of the surface. So we can write E is directly proportional to T raised to 4. Here E stands for not only energy, it is the energy, but it is energy emitted per second per unit area. Okay. So E will not have the dimension of energy. It is energy emitted per second per unit area is directly proportional to T raised to 4. Or we can write E is equal to sigma into T raised to 4. And sigma is known as Stefan's constant. Okay. And now we will discuss about Wien's displacement law. So Wien's law, it is named after the German physicist Wilhelm Wien, tells us that objects of different temperatures emit spectra that peak at different wavelengths. Okay, that it is whenever black bodies or whenever objects at different temperatures, they emit spectra of, what is the specialty of that spectra? That peak will be different at different wavelengths. Okay. So hotter objects emit radiation of shorter wavelength. Hotter objects will emit radiation of shorter wavelength and hence they appear blue. Similarly, colder, why hotter objects appear? They appear to be blue because blue has lesser wavelength and has more frequency, more energy. Similarly, cooler objects emit radiations of longer wavelength and hence they appear reddish. So blue color stands for blue flame. In the case of gas also you can see that blue flame indicates that heat energy is more. If it changed to red flame, it shows that heat energy is less, cooler object. Okay. So Wien's displacement law, it states that the wavelength corresponding to which the energy emitted by a black body is maximum is inversely proportional to its absolute temperature. What it is? Very simple. We can write maximum wavelength, a lambda max. Maximum wavelength emitted by a black body is inversely proportional to absolute temperature, or we can write lambda max is equal to B by T. It is directly proportional to 1 by T. Okay, lambda max is inversely proportional to T means, or we can write lambda max is proportional to 1 by T. If we remove the proportionality symbol, a constant will be there, that is known as lambda max is equal to B by T, and this constant is known as Wien's constant. Okay, the T is absolute temperature and B is a constant of proportionality called Wien's displacement constant, and its value is given by 2.897771955 into 10 raised to minus 3 meter Kelvin, not millikelvin, meter Kelvin. Okay, is it clear? And what is the significance? Before discussing, we will discuss what is the energy distribution in a black body spectrum. Here you can see a graph. Here we are plotting the graph between power density. Power density means power per unit volume. Okay, and wavelength of a black body radiation or for an object. Okay, so here you can see that as the temperature decreases, what happens? The wavelength increases. No, as the temperature decreases, wavelength increases. So if temperature is large, it will correspond to shorter wavelength, or it will emit radiations of shorter wavelength, and if temperature is small, it emits wavelength of larger wavelength. Okay, so the wavelength of the peak of the black body radiation curve gives a measure of temperature. So what this peak shows? Peak shows that the temperature corresponding to that, what is the temperature, that is shown by this peak. Okay, so this is the significance of this spectrum. So from this spectrum we can say that if temperature is larger, what happens? Wavelength will be small, and if temperature is small, wavelength is large. So you can see that peak is shifting to right side as wavelength increases. Okay, or as temperature decreases, you can see that peak in the spectrum shifts to right side. That is the significance of this spectrum. And which are the applications of Wien's displacement law, or why, what is the significance? So it is useful for determining the temperature of hot radiant objects such as stars, and indeed for a determination of the temperature of any radiant object whose temperature is far above that of its surroundings. So what is the significance? You can measure the temperature, no? By knowing the wavelength of the radiation emitted, we can measure, we can get an idea about the temperature of its surface. Similarly, in the case of incandescent bulb, with the decrease in temperature of the filament, as the temperature of the filament decreases, what happens? Wavelengths are longer, making it light appear redder. Okay, so that will become red color. Okay, and now we will discuss the last topic, that is known as greenhouse effect. No need to tell about greenhouse effect, you have studied in detail in biology, but just we will brush it up. So the greenhouse effect is the process by which radiation from a planet's atmosphere warms the planet's surface to a temperature above what it would be without this atmosphere. Okay, it is the process by which radiation from a planet's atmosphere warms the planet's surface. Okay, so this is what happens in greenhouse effect. So Earth's natural greenhouse effect is critical to supporting life. No, it is very much essential. If greenhouse effect helps for the critical, or it is critical to supporting life. And human activities, mainly the burning of fossil fuels and clear cutting of forests, have increased the greenhouse effect and caused global warming. No need to say, you know it very well. No, human activities like that, burning of fossil fuels and cutting forest or cutting trees, increase the greenhouse effect, and which resulted in global warming. Now we will discuss problems. Okay, so first problem is that how much energy would be needed to heat 450 grams of copper metal from a temperature of 25 degrees Celsius to a temperature of 75 degrees Celsius. And given the specific heat of copper is but it is specific heat of copper at 25 degrees Celsius is 0.385 joule per gram degree Celsius. Okay. So first of all, we can write what is a change in temperature. That can be written as final temperature minus initial temperature. So that is equal to 75 minus 25, which is equal to 50 degrees Celsius. And now we know the formula to find heat energy required. That is equal to mass into specific heat capacity into temperature difference. Mass here we can write in gram itself. All data we can write in gram, because here specific heat capacity also given in joule per gram degree Celsius. So it will get cancelled. Okay. So 450 gram is the mass and specific heat capacity value is 0.385 joule per gram degree Celsius, and temperature difference is 50 degrees Celsius. If you substitute, you will get it as 8700 joule. Okay. Is it clear? So like this you have to solve problems related to specific heat capacity. If they are asked to find the heat energy required, or sometimes they may ask how much mass will be heated, or how much mass heat energy will be given, specific heat capacity will given, temperature difference will be given, you have to find the mass. So the same formula you can use, okay, accordingly, whichever data is given. Next problem is that how much heat is required to convert 0.8 kilogram of ice at minus 35 degrees Celsius into steam at 100 degrees Celsius. Latent heat of fusion okay. Here the problem is not like this. How much heat energy is required to convert 2 kilogram of ice at 0 degrees Celsius to 2 kilogram of water at 20 degrees Celsius. Okay, problem by mistake it came like this. It is like this. How much heat energy is required to convert, that you have to be very careful. Don't copy the same problem. The problem is like this. How much heat energy is required to convert 2 kilogram of ice at 0 degrees Celsius to 2 kilogram of water at 20 degrees Celsius. So 0 degrees Celsius 2 kilogram of ice is there, that we have to convert it into 20 degrees Celsius water. Okay. So we can find what is the total heat. First we can write heat 2 kilogram of ice should be converted into 2 kilogram of ice at 0 degrees Celsius to be converted into 2 kilogram of water at 0 degrees Celsius. No. 2 kilogram of ice at 0 degrees Celsius should be converted into 2 kilogram of water at 0 degrees Celsius. Then what we have to do? From there 0 degrees Celsius water should be converted into 20 degrees Celsius water. Okay. So for first part what we have to use? We have to use mass into latent heat, because there only change of state is there. In the second part what happens? There is same state but temperature variation is there. There we have to use mass into specific heat capacity into temperature difference. So we can write Q is equal to M into L plus M into C into delta T. So here data, all data was given in the problem here. Okay. So So 2 into 334, that is the latent heat of fusion of ice. It is given in the problem. And specific heat capacity also given 4.187. That is same, or sometimes it will give it as 4.2 also. Okay, that also given into temperature difference 20 minus 0. Okay. So first term corresponds for the change of state, that is 0 degrees Celsius ice is getting converted into 0 degrees Celsius water. Okay. For that heat energy required is given by mass into latent heat of fusion of ice. Similarly, then 0 degrees Celsius water is converted into 20 degrees Celsius water. There we are using the formula mass into specific heat capacity into temperature difference. So what we will get total heat energy, we will get it as 835.48 kilojoule. Okay. So problem you have to rectify it. This is not the problem. So the same problem also you can do. How you can do? Here it is given that for this problem what you have to do? This is not the solution. For this problem, what you have to do, how much heat is required to convert 0.8 kilogram of ice at minus 35 degrees Celsius into steam at 100 degrees Celsius. So what you have to do, first minus 35 degrees Celsius ice should be converted into 0 degrees Celsius ice. Okay, so specific heat capacity of ice will be given. So mass into specific heat capacity of ice into temperature difference. Then 0 degrees Celsius ice should be converted into 0 degrees Celsius water. There you have to use mass into latent heat of fusion of ice. Then 0 degrees Celsius water should be converted into 100 degrees Celsius water. There we have to use again mass into specific heat capacity of water into temperature difference. Again, what it is, we have to use that 100 degrees Celsius water is getting converted into 100 degrees Celsius steam. There we have to use mass into latent heat of fusion of latent heat of vaporization. So similar one problem example is given in the textbook. You can go through that problem also. Okay, that is minus 12 or 20 degrees Celsius ice to steam at 100 degrees Celsius, like that. All data is given, you have to solve it. Okay. Is it clear? So only one thing you have to remember, during the change of state you have to use the formula Q is equal to mass into latent heat, and during the same state temperature difference you have to use the formula mass into specific heat capacity into temperature difference. Okay, now we'll discuss one problem related to thermal conductivity also. Calculate the rate of loss of heat through a glass window of area 1000 centimeter square and thickness 0.4 centimeter when temperature inside is 37 degrees Celsius and outside is minus 5 degrees Celsius, and given that coefficient of K means coefficient of thermal conductivity of glass is 2.2 into 10 raised to minus 3 calories per second per centimeter per Kelvin. Okay. So here what the formula we have to use? We have to use H is equal to, that is heat energy per unit time. That is, here we are writing it as H, that is equal to Q by T. Here what they ask, rate of loss of heat. So Q by T, that we can write it as K into A into T1 minus T2 by D. K is given 2.2 into 10 raised to minus 3. Then area is given 1000. We are not converting it into SI unit because here final answer we are writing in calories per second. Okay, so 1000, and temperature difference 37 minus 5, which is equal to 42, and thickness separation between the hot and cold, that is 0.4. No. So if you simplify, you will get it as 231 calories per second. Okay. Is it clear? So this is the way of solving problems from thermal properties of matter. So I hope all of you understood, and if you are having any doubt, feel free to communicate that to me. Okay, thank you.